on the topic that is often overlooked until you hit some sort of critical moment where you're like, crap, we should have paid more attention to this beforehand. And so for the attendees here today, I think you're really going to realize how at risk you are and how easy it can be to save your store from getting hacked, save your site from disappearing off the face of the planet, save your Instagram from posting up like sunglass offers because somebody found out the password or stole the phone of one of your social media marketers. And so I'm really excited. Mike, are you with me?
I'm here. How's it going, Derek?
Awesome. It's going well. It looks like you're ready. You're sharing. We're a little behind schedule on the event overall, but you have 30 minutes. I don't want to rush you. So we'll just kind of push everything back a little bit to make sure we have time for the remaining speakers. I will, guys, this is Mike from Rewind. If you haven't looked at rewind.io, highly recommend installing this tool, especially for Shopify stores. And you can tell me the other platforms you integrate with. But it just backs up your site so that if you make a mistake, you can go back. If you lose the site because of some weird glitch, you can go back. It's just simple, effective, and it saves you possibly thousands or millions of dollars when catastrophe strikes. Mike, I'll let you take it away from here.
Sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, it absolutely does help in all those situations. So let's try and talk a bit today about how to avoid that, right? Like, we don't want to be losing hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales in the next few months. You know, this is the Super Bowl of retail, if you will, coming up. And you want to make sure that your store is protected. So I'm going to give you 4 really easy tips today on how to make sure that your store is protected before Black Friday. I mean, clearly everybody knows that selling online is completely dependent on whether your store is available or not. You know, most people listening today have taken those steps to move from a self-hosted solution into a SaaS solution like Shopify or BigCommerce. And that certainly helps. You know, they've got hundreds or thousands of employees that are working on the infrastructure behind their platforms to make sure that your store is up and not going down. So from an infrastructure perspective, you know, you don't have to worry about it. You're on their platforms, they're taking care of it. And that allows you, you know, some freedom to try and work on and focus your business and focus on other parts of your business to make sure that that everything is working well. At the same time, at the end of the day, everybody at some point will experience some sort of downtime, even if you're on Shopify or BigCommerce, and not through any fault of their own, not with their platform going down, but just because of mistakes that you might be making as a store owner when you're accessing your store, right? We protect over 10,000 Shopify businesses, and we've seen all sorts of problems that people have either caused on their own or through different apps and things like that. But, you know, human error obviously comes into it. I mean, we're entrepreneurs generally, working long hours. At some point, you're going to make a mistake that you wish you hadn't have made, right? We've heard from people who have deleted their entire blogs and removed all the blog posts and all the content marketing that they did behind that. We've seen people accidentally delete hundreds and thousands of products. We've seen cats jump on keyboards while somebody's been editing a theme and completely messing up their theme. I mean, we've pretty much seen everything here at Rewind. So obviously, human error, the number one thing that we see in terms of causing downtime to a store on Shopify and BigCommerce. Sometimes we'll see malicious attacks. Many of you in the last few weeks may have been receiving some emails from people who are trying to get access to your store. So it's called phishing emails, where they're asking for Shopify credentials. I know in a couple of partner email lists and communication channels where we've seen an increase in the number of people that are reporting these emails going around. We received a few of them as well. So sometimes there are people out there that are, you know, just trying to cause problems maliciously, trying to get access to your store, and, you know, delete data or just generally take your store down to try and, you know, cause problems. We've sometimes seen this from ex-employees, ex-business partners, and things like that. So certainly there are instances out there where people are maliciously going after store owners as well. And lastly, software glitches. So many people have installed third-party applications into their online store, whether that be through the Shopify App Store, the BigCommerce App Store, or extensions on Magento or WooCommerce. And sometimes those software has bugs in it, right? I mean, no software is perfect. Certainly, you know, platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce go through an extensive QA cycle before they get released. That same QA cycle is not necessarily happening at some of the smaller software development shops that are building apps that merchants are relying on in order to run their business. And so we do see, in some cases, software glitches causing serious problems to merchants and their stores. As an example of that, a few years ago, before they moved on to Shopify, Gymshark website went down for 8 hours straight. It was just before Black Friday in 2013, and it was caused by a third-party application. So these third-party apps that are integrating into the store, in this case, cost them approximately $143,000 of lost sales. One of the first instances that Rewind came across was about 4 years ago, just a few weeks before Christmas, when another third-party app broke one of our customers' stores and deleted all of their products just a few weeks before Christmas. And so these third-party app integrations are fantastic. They really help, you know, add functionality to people's stores. They provide tremendous amounts of value to customers and to merchants themselves. But at the same time, they're also potentially a cause of tremendous problems. So knowing all of that and knowing that, you know, your store is somewhat at risk, let's talk about how to actually secure your Black Friday, your store in time for Black Friday or Cyber Monday, right? So we're going to go over these 4 things: securing your passwords, deleting unnecessary applications that you're not using, managing the permissions that you're giving to other users, and finally, backing up everything, because at the end of the day, mistakes happen. Now, in an ironic, what I would say ironic, turn of events, I was hoping to show you how to do some of this through the Shopify admin. Unfortunately, Shopify's having some problems today where I can't log into my store. There's a couple of stores that are like that. And so I'm not going to be able to show you how to do this, but I'll try and give you as much information as I can. And if you have any questions at the end of the day, you can always email us and we'll be happy to help you, walk you through how to do this. So let's talk first of all about securing your passwords. Your password is the #1 way that you get access to your account, and it really protects you or protects you and your store from anyone else who wants to have access to it. So if you're not using a secure password, and by that I mean something that you can't remember typically, that you're not using anywhere else, then your store is really at risk, right? Passwords are being hacked all the time through, you know, large corporations that are going through security hacks. And if you're reusing those passwords on your Shopify site, somebody can take those passwords that have been stolen from some other website, use it on your Shopify store, and gain access to your store. So using something like a 1Password and a password manager is really the best way to make sure that that your site is secure and that nobody can get access to it. Other options in terms of password managers will include stuff like, or an application called LastPass, which is also good. At Rewind, we've got an agreement with 1Password where when you sign up with Rewind, we'll give you 6 months free of 1Password. It really is the easiest way to manage all of your passwords. It integrates into your Windows app, into your Windows box, onto your Mac, onto your iOS devices, your Android devices, really anywhere that you need those passwords. And it also enables what we call 2-factor authentication for a lot of your online accounts. I'm just going to talk about that for a second. In terms of 2-factor authentication, what this is it's a second piece of information that's needed in addition to your username and your password in order for somebody to log in. So if somebody did get access to your Shopify username and password, or your BigCommerce username and password, and was able to log into your account, without this other code, they wouldn't be able to get access to your account. And so typically these codes are generated either on your mobile device or sometimes they're sent to your mobile device. And so you need your phone in order to log into any site that you need. It's a fantastic way to make sure that you are really the only one that can log into any account where you've enabled this. You'll find this in a lot of online banking applications. Google allows you to do this, Facebook, most of the popular largest internet sites allow you to do this, and Shopify allows you to do it as well. If you go into your account and then click on security, you'll see you've got the option here to change your password or set a recovery email. We've also got this thing that they call two-step authentication. You can follow their instructions on how to enable that. And you'll have the option of generating codes that are sent to your phone or that are generated on your phone itself. And then when you go to log in, you have to enter your username and your password. And then you also have to enter in these 6-digit codes that, like I said, are either generated on your phone or generated or sent to your phone. As a benefit, 1Password can actually generate these authentication codes for you. So if you're using 1Password as a password manager, it's actually super easy to make sure that you can log in to any site that's enabled two-factor authentication. So just a fantastic way of enabling that and making sure that you can, that you're the only one that's logging into those sites. The other thing we recommend is deleting unnecessary applications. On a regular basis, you should be going through the apps that are installed in your store or the extensions that are installed in your store and making sure that each one is needed. You should make sure that you're actually using it. Make sure that you're currently that you installed it on purpose and that it's actually being used in your store currently. Not that something that you had needed a while ago and you're no longer needing, but that you're currently needing it. So you can see in this test store that I've got a bunch of apps that I've installed into my Shopify store. And really you want to make sure that you're deleting any of the applications that you're no longer using. And the reason you want to do this is it's a security principle that's called least privilege, right? And so you want to make sure that any application, first of all, only has access to the data that it needs. And in order to get access to the data that it needs, you have to make sure that you need that application. So if you're not needing any apps that you've got in your Shopify store, I highly recommend you delete them. Those apps typically have access to your store. They've got access sometimes to your products, to your themes, to your collections, how you've managed your store, to your customers and your orders in some cases. And if you've got access to that, typically they've also got the ability to delete them. And so like I said earlier, we've seen applications where they've caused problems in people's online stores, and you really want to make sure that you're avoiding that. So if you don't need the application, make sure you delete it. One thing that we hear a lot from merchants is they'll typically go in and install other applications just to test them out. And then they might install it, they'll test it, and then they don't need it, but they don't uninstall it. It really is best practice. If you don't need the application, it really shouldn't have access to your store, so you should be deleting it. In a similar way that you're deleting your applications, you really should be doing the same thing with people who have access to your store. So make sure that you've only given access to people who need access to your store. And if somebody has access to your store and they no longer require it, they should not be listed on an account on your store. In addition to that, anyone with access to your store should only have permission to the things that they need. So in this case, on the right-hand side, you'll see this is the dialog box or the screen to add staff members to a Shopify account. And typically that little box that says this staff account will have full permissions, typically that box is checked. If you uncheck that box, you'll see you can actually provide specific permission to people. You can give people permission to only orders or products or gift cards or reports or marketing or discounts or apps, etc. Anyone that doesn't need access to other parts of the store should not have access to it. So if somebody's in charge of your store, for instance, and in charge of just fulfilling orders, You wouldn't want to give them access to the product section. They don't need access to the product section, so they shouldn't have access to it. So make sure you give them access to orders, potentially draft orders, but you wouldn't select products or gift cards or customers or anything else. And if you do that, you can really minimize the chance that, as those people like you are working long hours, working late into the night, that they don't accidentally go into the product section or the blog or your pages, start messing around with your content and in sections where they really generally shouldn't be. Just an easy way for you to make sure that that the people who are accessing your store only have access to the sections that they need. At the end of the day, even with a strong password, removing any unused applications, we're ensuring that users who have access to your store only have access to the things that they need. At the end of the day, though, mistakes still happen, right? We see this all the time. Entrepreneurs are working late at night. Unfortunately, they go in, they don't know that that deleting their blog will also delete their blog posts. So they go in and they delete their blog, and then all of a sudden all their content is gone. Or they're editing their theme and they add in an extra character, and then they save the theme, and all of a sudden people can't order from their store. So we've seen all of this all the time. And obviously, at the end of the day, you really do need to back up your store. And so most people aren't aware of the difference between what Rewind provides as a backup and what Shopify provides as a backup or BigCommerce. Because with a lot of these SaaS platforms, most people are under the impression that they handle the backups and that they're not needed. And in fact, Shopify and BigCommerce do back up their platforms, right? All the data from Shopify and all the data from BigCommerce is backed up. What they provide, though, is a system level backup, a platform backup. And so that would cover, the situation where a meteorite might land on their servers, or a fire happens in one of their data centers, or their data is breached in some way, right? Large scale problems that affect every customer on their platform. But the reality is that if something happens to your store, they won't go into their backup and recover the information that you need in order to fix that problem. So things like third-party app errors, people maliciously going in and deleting data from your application, from your store. CSV imports, we see this a lot. CSV imports or exports, and those going wrong. And a lot of human error. People generally just, making a mistake. So the bad news, right? Mistakes and data disasters are inevitable. If you run your Shopify store for any length of time and you've been able to avoid it to this point, consider yourself lucky. That's fantastic. At some point, it's going to happen to you. The good news, though, is that Rewind is providing a free one-time backup to quickly recover your store and minimize any downtime. So completely free for stores of any size. It's a one-time backup, so you'll be able to protect your store before Black Friday. And that way, if something happens over the holiday season, you'll be able to recover back to the way it was when that backup happened. Obviously, the ability to upgrade to any paid plan exists in case you want to do more ongoing backups, but that one-time backup, completely free, no charge, and will allow you to recover in case something happens to your products. So you can get that at rewind.io/free. And you can learn more about Rewind for Shopify and BigCommerce at rewind.io. So just to sum up, make sure your store is secure for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Secure your passwords by using a password manager. Make sure you're deleting any unnecessary applications. Make sure you're managing the permissions to other users and minimizing what you're giving to them. And at the end of the day, make sure you've got a backup, because at some point disaster is going to strike and you want to make sure that you've got a copy of your data.
Love it.
That's it.
Awesome. Mike, thank you so much. I think it's funny when we're talking about security, I think we talk a lot about the fear of something going wrong. But at the end of the day, if you expect your store to be around for a long period of time, it's only a matter of time before you reach some sort of nearly detrimental issue, something that's, like you said, going to cost you into the six figures. And the larger you get, the riskier it becomes, as well as the larger of a target you become. Some companies in SaaS especially are a lot better at this. Larger companies have specific in-house security measures. They even make you go through security training. In e-commerce, I feel like we neglect this because, we're entrepreneurs, we're starting the store ourselves, our teams are small, we're only doing a few $100,000, $1 million, in revenue. Who would go after me, my account? But at the end of the day, it's the path of least resistance is what the hacker especially is looking for. And as you mentioned, human error seems to be prevalent. I'm not beyond fallacy myself, and I have made a few errors. Luckily, Google Analytics allows you to reinstall views after you delete them. Found that one out. I just love what you described here. It sounds simple, but I know that nobody's doing it because I talk to store owners. They give me their password. They give me one password, and then it's for like 7 different things. I can hack into their Gmail because I have that password. It's so non-creative and it's very risky. So I really appreciate this session. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think, you bring up a lot of really good points there, right? And sharing passwords, we see that happening a lot as well. Giving access to one account to multiple people, really, again, something that shouldn't be done. At the end of the day, you're right, something is going to happen. I think what we see with Rewind is a lot of people are coming to Rewind either after they've had a problem either on Shopify or BigCommerce, which is unfortunate because, in that case, we can't help them, or they're proactive because they've experienced a problem somewhere else. And when they've experienced that problem somewhere else, if you've ever lost data, and I mean, that's the reason why I started this company, was because I've been there and I've lost my hard drive. If you've ever lost something, you know that you don't want to go through the pain of recreating it again. It's incredibly frustrating, and just the feeling of dread that you get when you log in and nothing's there, and you don't have a backup. So I think, unfortunately for us, most people assume that the platforms do this for them.
Yeah.
Shopify or BigCommerce, and these people are not alone. We also back up MailChimp, we also back up QuickBooks Online. A lot of these online SaaS applications have exactly the same problem. This is not unique to anybody really. But
I
at the end
actually
of the
just
day,
needed my QuickBooks data. It was a pain in the butt to get it. It took 3 weeks to get the data because I didn't have a backup of it after canceling an account for a business that I shut down years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so that's the type of thing that Rewind can definitely help people with, right? And we see this just time and time again. And so one of the ideas we had, and what we're really happy about this year, is this free backup that we've got for Black Friday and Cyber Monday to make sure that people have one backup at least that they can go to. It depending on how long it is between running the backup and when the problem happens, it may be slightly out of date, but it's at least going to get the majority of what you need back up and running, right? It's going to get your products back up and running. It's going to get the images for those products back up. It's going to have the correct pricing on them and things like that, and you're going to be able to start selling again while you try and figure out what the problem is. So that free backup really is something that we're really, really happy that we're able to provide to customers this year. But just sort of spreading the word that this is not something that Shopify or BigCommerce or other SaaS applications will do for you. And at the end of the day, you need to be in control and in charge of your own data in the same way that they have backups of their customers' data.
And you should be acquired by Shopify, by the way. But I was going to say the number one thing that I know about human behavior is that humans are reactive and not proactive. And that's what scares me about this, is that they could hear this session and still not take action. They're going to wait for the $140,000 issue to arrive. And then the I told you so moment kind of appears from there.
Yeah. It's I mean, and then that it really does honestly break my heart, because the thing with a backup is you never know you need it until you need it.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we go back to our customer, who had his products deleted just a few weeks before Christmas a few years ago, there was no warning for him when that happened. The company that had the integration didn't write him and say, we're thinking of releasing our software tomorrow with this major bug in it that's going to delete all of your products.
Yeah.
So you might want to get a backup before that happens. I mean, it's one of those things where if you don't have it ahead of the problem, we're not able to help you. And it's the one thing we see most often with these SaaS applications is people are coming to us after the problem happens, and it really bothers us because we're like, oh man, if you had the backup, literally that problem would be solved in a matter of seconds. But unfortunately you don't, and you're spending now hours or days, or in some cases weeks, recovering your store to the way it was. And it would have been so easy to install this application. And so that's
I feel
part
like
of
your
the
sales team actually is like, yeah, they're like a I'm sorry team. I'm sorry you didn't have it
yeah
installed. They can't help you.
yeah it's a good way of describing it, right? Which is, I mean, once you have the problem, I mean, you definitely become a customer. The thing that we always want is to prove that the product works, and it works well, and it does what it says it's going to do on the box, right? We've got over 1,000 5-star reviews in all the platforms that we support. We work really, really hard to make sure that we're backing up all the data that we can, that when that problem happens, that we recover the data back to the way it was before the problem happened, which is, not easy when Shopify is changing their API so often and so many times. But we work extremely hard on making sure that the product works and works well. So it really does, hurt us when we can't recover that data for a customer. But like I said, hopefully that free version that we've got will wake people up and make sure that they say, okay, well, there's really no risk. I can install this. If I need it, that's fantastic. I can go back. If I don't need it, there's absolutely no risk to installing the application. It's a company that that I can trust and that will protect my data, and will only help me in case something happens.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And I do recommend everyone just installs this product and has at least one backup of their site. I mean, whatever it takes to make sure that you're not at risk of detrimental loss. I think it's very important.